We're so thrilled to be here. I don't know if everyone heard me and I'm being redundant, but we truly are amongst America's heroes. And we have a great tweet here from friend of the show, Magic Johnson, I want to share with you guys. He wrote this: "It's very cool that First Take is broadcasting live from Westover Air Reserve Base to celebrate those who serve our country." And yes, it is.
And we didn't get a shot at the top of the show to say that we want to thank all of you servicemen and servicewomen, not only here but around the world, for all that you have done and will do for the greatest country in the world. We appreciate that. Thank you.
There's always something for me to add, but I can't say it any better than that. There's a first time for everything for Skip Bayless. He was perfect.
Thank you so much for having us and all the hospitality. You ready to work, guys?
Let's do it.
How about those Colts? That offense getting back on track, and new offensive coordinator Rob Chudzinski's first game as offensive coordinator, taking down Peyton in the house that he built 27-24. Stephen A., what did Luck prove against number 18, Peyton Manning?
This saddens me to say this, Skip. He proved that he needed a new offensive coordinator.
Ooh. That's a rough statement.
I feel bad because I like Pep Hamilton a lot, who was unceremoniously relieved of his duties last week. But when you look at the fact that Andrew Luck was third worst in terms of completion percentage coming into the game against the blitz, and then last night he was 16-26 for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns against the blitz. When you see the quickness with which he was able to get rid of the football yesterday, when he wasn't standing in a pocket like a sacrificial lamb forced to try and make plays, when he wasn't being asked to do so much and he was able to get rid of the ball so quickly, you literally found yourself saying 2 things. There's some exceptional play calling going on here, at least in the first half. And number 2, and more importantly, how the hell was this not happening all of this time leading up to these games? It seems to be a relatively simple thing when you consider the fact that coming into this season, Andrew Luck had been sacked 100 times over his career in the first 3 years, that he had been touched a little about 71 additional times. That's 171 times minimum he was hit coming into this season. And yet still, you had him back there holding the football for 4, 5, 6 seconds at a time, and you had this guy Chudzinski getting rid of the ball in 2 to 3 seconds. I hate to say it, but that's coaching. That's coaching. And so, who's responsible for coaching on the offensive side of the ball? Now, I don't want to just put it on Pep Hamilton. I got to put it to some degree on Pagano, because Pagano is the head coach, even though he always wanted Chudzinski. He was the head coach who had the power to usurp the authority of Pep Hamilton, and you sat back and allowed all of that to happen over the last year. Now, in defense of Pep Hamilton, let's be clear. They went to the divisional playoff game the last 2 years and then the AFC Championship game last year. So it's not like the man didn't know what he was doing, and it's not like he hasn't done something right. I'm just answering the direct question as to what entered my mind yesterday as I watched this team against this defense for the Denver Broncos. I couldn't believe how quickly Andrew Luck got rid of the football. I couldn't believe he didn't throw 1 interception. I couldn't believe he was just sacked once. And then I looked and I went back and I watched how quickly he was getting rid of the ball, and I saw the play calling. Certainly they were assisted by the complete absence of a running game on the part of Denver, who went away from everything that worked for them, especially against the 28th ranked defense against the rush. Why would you start running the damn football? Makes no sense whatsoever. But in the end, that was a culprit, but the other culprit was that the play calling was definitely flagrantly different and exceptionally better than what we had seen from the Colts the previous 7 to 8 games.
Man, I cannot blame Pep Hamilton for what happened yesterday.
Okay.
He's a fine young coach.
He is.
He's fast-tracking to become a head coach in this league.
He was.
And this is going to set him back.
Yeah.
But I remind you, and you pointed it out, remember, Andrew Luck beat Peyton at Denver in the playoffs last year.
That's right.
Well, that wasn't Pep's fault, right? I mean, you got to give him some credit for
that.
that.
He gets credit.
Right,
that's why I brought up the victories.
Yeah, I got it. So here's my takeaway from yesterday. I don't know why this happens, but Andrew Luck plays great against Peyton Manning and not so great against everybody else.
Inspired?
I don't know, because that's 4 times they have met head-to-head.
3-1.
3-1. Andrew Luck, 2 at home, 1 at Denver. Wow, that's pretty great. And in those 4 games, Luck's QBR is 73 on a scale of 0 to 100, and Peyton's is only 56. But over the last 4 years, in their head-to-head battles since Peyton got kicked out of Indy and they drafted Luck, in those 4 years, Peyton has led the NFL in QBR, while Andrew Luck's QBR has fallen each year, all 4 years, all the way down to 30th in the NFL going into yesterday's game.
Right.
And what happened yesterday? Peyton played okay yesterday. He played pretty well, actually. They were both 21 of 36. Peyton threw for a few more yards, 281 to 252 for Luck. Both of them threw for 2 touchdowns. But to your point, Peyton threw 2 interceptions, and Andrew Luck, who's been a turnover machine, but once again this year, he was leading the NFL in turnovers going in, 0 turnovers yesterday. No interceptions, no lost fumbles. So I look at what happened and I say, what are you doing? Well, it's just he gets up for one guy. And after that, he has decent games against other quarterbacks too. But in the end, he's been mostly a disaster this year, except for one game against Peyton Manning. I'm sorry, I can't blame that on Pep Hamilton. I think I credit to that Andrew Luck loves to play against Peyton Manning, and I think Peyton feels a little pressure when he plays against Andrew Luck.
Well, I think clarification needs to be made here. I'm not blaming Pep Hamilton. The Colts did. They fired their offensive coordinator in the middle of the season. That just doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't.
And not only did you do that, but then you come back the very next week against one of the top-ranked defenses in all of football, and you look like a completely different offense. Skip, if Andrew Luck, if the same plays were being called, and it took the same amount of time to get rid of the football, and the same things were transpiring, you'd have me. But when you quicken the pace, when you dip and dunk, when you get rid of the football inside of 3 seconds, when you do everything that you were not doing for the previous 8 games, how can I not look at the offensive coordinator they just fired? Now, if you want to sit there and say to me, it's Pagano, it's not Pep Hamilton, I'm all ears. But it had to be somebody, because Andrew Luck didn't do that on his own. Somebody was telling him, 3-step drop. Go through your reads and progressions, do this, and that before you get rid of the daggone football. Somebody was telling him to do that, because when he was asked to do something differently, he didn't have a single turnover. And that's all I'm saying to you is this. I looked at Andrew Luck, 21 of 36 for 252 yards. It ain't Tom Brady numbers, okay? I mean, it ain't nothing that knocks you out. We're celebrating the fact that he didn't turn over the football. They also rushed for 120 yards on 40 carries. So they had ball control. They were giving it. They were grinding it down, okay? And then Andrew Luck was relatively conservative in his approach. That's what happened, and that's what they did. To build his confidence, to cut down on the turnovers, that appeared to have worked. It is something that seems simple enough for Pep Hamilton to have exercised. Maybe it's not his fault, Skip. Maybe it's Pagano. And I have a problem. Me personally, I have a problem with Pep Hamilton being let go in the middle of the season, because talk about aspirations for becoming the head coach. If something could do irreparable harm to your reputation, it's getting fired in the middle of the season. If you let him go at the end of the season, well, we decided to move in a different direction. I decided to move on our merry way. We agreed to the parting of the ways. No, you leave 8 games into the season, your behind was fired, okay? And that implies that it is your fault. Now, that's not me. That's Pagano and the Colts. And somebody may perhaps need to explain that other than myself. But based on what I was seeing yesterday, to answer your question, when I saw what I saw, I said, damn, it looks like they made the right move.
Okay. How about instead of blaming Pep Hamilton, we blame a Denver defense for just not showing up? They had a big win against the bad man that is Aaron Rodgers, or used to be Aaron Rodgers, in Denver. And I don't think they took Andrew Luck and company very seriously yesterday.
That's fair.
They just looked deadheaded. They looked out of it from the start, like a step slow, like they were going to mail this one in, and boy, they got nailed is what happened.
Yeah.
And it degenerated into such frustration that a Aqib Talib at the end of the game is gouging an opponent in the eye and then getting tossed out of the game for berating a referee. It degenerated into that.
Aqib Talib should be ashamed of himself because he's a veteran, he's a big-time baller, and to have Peyton Manning standing on the sideline with under 2 minutes left, knowing that he's aching to get back on the field and win this game, and you nullify that with a stupid, idiotic, brain-lock penalty by poking somebody in the eye, he should be ashamed of himself. Having said all of that, Indianapolis did jump out to a 17-0 lead. A special teams return to end the first half, ultimately changed the momentum. And then after that, the score was tied, not just once but twice. So I'm looking at it from the perspective that regardless of what Denver did, they were still in this position to win, and something the Indianapolis Colts did prevented that from happening, at least contributed to it. So all I'm saying is, you're right. You can look at it that way. I look at it from this perspective that they made a change at the offensive coordinator's position. It was flagrant that they did so. And then they went out and they played one of the best teams in football and they beat them. That is not, fair or not, that does not look good for Pep Hamilton.
Go ahead.
Can I caution one thing, though? Because I did this after Dan Campbell's first game with Miami, and I was like, oh, they look great. Ryan Tannehill looks great. So this time I'm like, okay, pump the brakes. Let's see what happens. If they can keep it up.
With all due respect, Molly, Skip, I don't have to pump the brakes. And the reason I don't have to pump the brakes is because the direct question was, what were your thoughts when you watched last night?
I have to pump the brakes. That's what I was saying, because I was where you were.
Molly can pump her.
I have to pump the brakes.
I'm talking about,
I pump the gas, too.
Remember this, y'all. We can pump the brakes all we want to. Pep Hamilton is without a job. So guess what? He doesn't get to sit there and say, see in a week or two. No, and come back. He's without a job. So we got to look at the Indianapolis Colts and say to ourselves, do you realize that Chudzinski, all he has to do is make sure that Andrew Luck ain't turning the ball over? That's it.
Okay.
Because he won't get blamed for anything.
Let's see how they do against the rest of their schedule. But when you keep playing Houston and Jacksonville, right, it's not that hard.
That's right.
So Andrew Luck should win the division by default.
That's right.
4-5, and they're first in the AFC South.
Yeah.
All right, coming up from Chicopee, Mass. here at Westover Air Reserve Base. First Take is here. We're so thrilled. We have some serious news to get into. New development in the Greg Hardy situation. We have pictures of the victim, Nicole Holder, were released from the domestic violence incident. We'll react to that when we come back.